Welcome to the Wattage Ride from McKinney, Texas. A race ride like no other, presented by Wattage Coffee Company over in McKinney and Cadence Cyclery, which is the sponsor of my team, PAC, Plano Athletic Cycling Club. Yes, I think that's what it's called. Anyway, here we are. We're 42 miles into this ride. The breakaway has not formed yet. What happened just before this is Chris Carlson made an attack. Former world champion, national champion, and state champion multiple times over, Chris Carlson made an attack. My teammate just 2 bikes ahead of me covered that, and then RG right in front of me covered that and brought it back together. Anyway, getting back into the action, what we're seeing now, this is a very steep climb out of Enchanted Forest, and I was anticipating that this would happen, that there would be, of course, an attack, and Chris had set this up for his teammate Joe, who made the first attack, to my teammate James followed that. Now, I didn't instantly accelerate. I thought that was great. Let's get 2 guys up the road. But Chad there, 2 bikes ahead of me on the Cadence team, he's not in that break. He cannot let that break go. He needs to do something about that. It's his responsibility, as his team is not represented there. He is chasing. We have no obligation here. Me and John, we're on the same team here. We're on the same team as James up the road. We have no obligation to help here. We're okay, theoretically, with letting that break go. And so John looks back at me right there. But on the other hand, we have a little bit of a dilemma because we've left everyone else behind. And if we do bridge, then we have a break of 5. The breakaway theoretically would be more likely to stay away. And we have 3 people out of the 5 in the break. So we're guaranteed at least 1 podium spot by having 3 of the 5 in the break. So John's here going to the front. He must be thinking the same thing. Like, it would be good if we close this gap. However, what we really don't want is we don't want to bridge Chad to the 2 guys ahead and for us not to make it with Chad. That would be a disaster, right? We don't want to do any work for Chad. At the very least, if Chad's going to make it, he has to do it on his own. So they're not really that far ahead of us here. It seems like in person when you're doing this, like it's like a million miles away and you're super tired and it's going to be really hard to cover it. But when you watch it on the video, it looks like it's just, really close. And in fact, it is kind of close. You watch these Tour de France videos. So anyway, this is an important moment. John has done a really nice pull there, and Chad's like, thanks, John. See you later. So my job here is to cover this. Now you'll note earlier I did not pull through. I'm gonna just stick on the back here. I'm like a barnacle. I'm not gonna do a dang thing. This ship is gonna take me somewhere, and Chad is pulling here. So unfortunately, I don't have my rear camera here. I'll check the rear camera footage, but I'm pretty sure my Cycle IQ, its battery's failing. That it did not get any footage of this part of the ride. So anyway, here I am doing the commentary without even having checked that, but no worries. So what a marvelous drafting opportunity. Of course, also a marvelous opportunity to get yourself injured or hurt. So you got to be a little bit careful here. I don't know what James is doing here. That's my teammate. So it's the 4 of us at this point. And I guess James is wanting to pass the vehicle, but when you're going up a hill and there's a car coming from the opposite direction, you better get out of the way. James gets out of the way, and here we are. We don't really want to draft the trailer here, although it certainly is tempting. So James is here right behind me, and it's the 4 of us at this point. So we have Cadence represented with 1 rider, RBM Matrix, I guess Bike Mart Matrix they would call it now. Richardson Bike Mart is now just Bike Mart. And Joe here. I had mentioned Joe in last week's video. So I also posted a video of Wattage last week, and I made the break in that video. It was kind of the most interesting, funny part of that particular ride I didn't actually have footage of, which is that one of the really strong Cadence riders was in the front breakaway, and he dropped back to the second group, which was 25 seconds behind. I was in that second group, and he actually bridged us to the first group. That was Kevin. but I didn't have that on video. Just had the part of the ride that happened afterwards. So I suppose you can say that this is a legitimate making of the break without somebody stitching it together against what would be typical team tactics, because Kevin's not going to do that in a real race. So now it's our job to make this break survive, and but at the same time not getting dropped. So you have to think about the overall tactics here. Like, is it possible they could attack me out of this break? Now, one thing I noticed that James is doing when I get on the front, he doesn't seem to allow me to stay on the front for very long. Like, he just goes right over me, and I'm not exactly sure why, but in my mind, most likely it's he doesn't want me to do too much work. You see the flags on the left. You see the wind's blowing pretty hard here from the left across the road to the right. Anyway, James doesn't want me to do too much work because he knows I'm a little bit iffy in terms of being able to stay with these guys. And also, my physiology is a little bit more on the sprinter side, a little bit less on the TT kind of side. So these sort of long, continuous efforts at this high pace takes it out of me. I'm not sure what category Joe is. I'm pretty sure he's a Cat 1. And Chad here, he's a Masters racer, but he's definitely a Cat 2, if not a Cat 1. They're definitely way above my level. And I've been on training rides with Chad and saw him disappear into the distance. So, but Chad also is coming back from an injury, so he's not quite in his top form right now. At least that's what he tells us. So, anyway, so I got to be a little bit careful here. Now, we want this break to survive, right? We don't want it to come back together. This is good odds for us. We're sort of the underdog team in this, and we want to have somebody on the podium. This is not an official race, but it's a race ride, sort of like the South Ride. Maybe if you're in an area where they have a lot of group rides, you'll have like one group ride that's kind of like the elite race ride. The historical elite race ride is the South Ride in the south of Dallas. But this is another one on the north side. And, historically over time, it's had some really good people come. The numbers are down. Today is the day of Hotter Than Hell, which is both races and probably more known for its just being a rally, not a race, in Wichita Falls, Texas, which is about, I guess, like a 3-hour drive to the northwest of us. So it's the premier rally in the entire area, and you have all kinds of people that do training. I'm not talking about racers so much as just the average ordinary cyclist in town that go out and they do this rally, and it's like the biggest deal of the entire year. And so numbers will be down just all over for group rides today, just because you have those people that are doing that rally, and a bunch of the faster people are also doing the races, which include a crit on Friday, road race, and I think another crit on Sunday. So you still have your group rides, right? You have that sort of in-between person that for whatever reason could be racing but isn't racing, but also isn't really interested in doing the overall rally. It's a great rally to do, about 10,000 people at its peak. I think more like 7,000 or 8,000 right now because of COVID and everything else. A little bit down, I think, but it wasn't canceled, and it did happen. And a lot of people had a lot of fun, I'm sure. I saw a lot of posts on social media. Anyway, back to what we're doing right here. So we have 4 people in the break. We see one person ahead, and actually there's a person chasing us from behind. And that person is maybe current, former world champion Chris Carlson, former professional cyclist as well. So he's, the list of his accomplishments could take up the rest of this video. But suffice it to say, he is an excellent, strong cyclist, master cyclist, but just really, he can beat the young, fast Cat 1s in the area. He's done that many times. He's at a different level. And he is chasing. So what I found out later afterwards is that my teammates were chasing us, not sure why, and they were bridging towards us. Chris Carlson was on the very back of them, not doing any work. As soon as they got within about 15 seconds of us, Chris just attacked and headed up the road. So that's what's going on behind us. And you see that there's a person ahead. His name is Matt, and he's one of the very, very fast cyclists. I believe he's a Cat 1 as well. And what I found out later, I wasn't sure what was going on, why he was up the road from us. He didn't actually attack. He's not up the road in a fair play sense. But he took some kind of shortcut or something, although this seems awfully close to when... I'm not sure where this shortcut is. But he shortcutted us, and he's now going to be joining in up ahead. So I don't have a rear view camera here. I wish that I did, so we could see the progress of Chris Carlson coming towards us. So when Chris joins, and we'll see him in a little bit and not too much, he's a teammate of Joe right in front of me on Matrix. And so now we have a situation where it's 2 versus 2 versus 1 with potentially a wild card up ahead of us. So here we are, and this ride was really hard for me. Try not to say so much. Using the exert data, I looked at what this ride looked like, and it did give me a breakthrough on the final sprint of the ride, so that's a spoiler alert, there is a final sprint. And it also bumped up my signature from 270 watts FTP to 280 watts FTP in one ride. So my signature changed. The way that Exert works is that it just models what your fitness is via your data as it comes in, and it can estimate your FTP. They have 3 parameters: your peak power, your high intensity energy, which is kind of like how much does your sink of power hold, how much do you have over your FTP that you can bring to bear, and of course your threshold power. So this told me that I went, whether that 280 is accurate or not is not the point, but what it tells me is that I went above and beyond the model of what I've been doing recently, in the past several weeks to months. So here's Matt on our right, and he's going to be an interesting wild card in this, and he's going to cause me great pain and suffering in the not too distant future here. There he is, world champion himself. So that's him making his presence shown there on the left, Chris. And I couldn't help but admire the definition of his calves. Is that okay? Is that okay to admire someone's calves definition? It's just like, rippling muscles, no fat. Just, I can't imagine how many pedal strokes have gone through those legs. So this really changes things up to have Mr. Carlson here with us. He can do it all. He can attack us. He can just TT, and he can sprint. It's a matter of what he wants to do, however. This is not like some elite ride where, we're going to get upgrade points and a picture. We're not going to get anything like that. It's just for bragging rights and fun and testing yourself. So, he might just sit up. He might do anything. He might just attack us. It's unknown at this point. So we're going to be taking a right here, and this will be a little bit of a crosswind at this point as we make this turn. From the wind, I believe, would be... Where was the wind coming from? Might be a little bit of a tailwind here, actually, like a cross tail. I guess maybe I can tell by how fast we're going relative to the power. But when I'm second wheel, by the way, I don't like to be first wheel, so when I'm second wheel, I don't pull through until I see Chad's elbow make that indication, because I'm like, gosh, if he's going, I'll let him stay as long as he wants until either slows down or tells me to go. But I'm thinking at this point, oh, you can see the flag there. So we're actually at the cross. It's more like a wind from the north. So me being on the right side here is giving some room to the guys behind me. I'm not guttering anyone here at this point. Usually the route would take us to the right, something called the ranchettes here. That's what we refer to that particular path, but the road's bad there, so we're not doing that route anymore. And we're just going to be doing this alternative route. One of the things about this ride is the chip seal. Chip seal's not super wonderful. You can hear it, you hear my bike bouncing. Oh, I forgot to mention, I broke a spoke earlier in the ride, about mile 35-ish, and so they had a nature break where people could stop, and I took that opportunity to look at my spoke, and the spoke wasn't broken actually, it's just completely detached from the rim. The nipple was bouncing around inside my rim. I just took off my wheel, took out the spoke, put it in my back pocket. Seemed like I didn't actually check the trueness of my wheel. I guess I was in such a rush, but I don't think there was any issue with the trueness of my front wheel. This was the front wheel, so I'm not, in a sprint, I'm not putting power into that front wheel, so I think it was safe, although kind of in my mind at the moment I was thinking maybe I should just, like, you know, not contest anything because I have I'm missing a spoke on my bike, but it was okay. It was okay. So here we have the two Matrix guys on the front, my teammate James right in front of me, and we're facing a pretty stiff crosswind. On the right side. Well, I'm not on the right side. I'm an idiot. I don't know where the crosswind's coming from in the moment. But maybe I wasn't really feeling that much of a crosswind. You know, sometimes you can move around a little bit if you're not sure exactly where the wind's coming from, and you know, the place where you ought to be is the place where it feels the easiest, where you have less power, less turbulence, and so forth. So, one thing about Mr. Carlson here is, you know, he's a coach. He coaches a lot of the local serious cyclists here. I mean, when I say serious, I mean people that want to get better. You don't have to be a Cat 1, Cat 2, Cat 3. You can, as far as I know, you can be just starting and in racing. And he coaches a lot of people. So he's going to be tactical. He's going to use this as, for example, he is going to want to do something for Joe. He's going to want to collaborate with Joe and have Joe be the person that capitalizes on their tactics, most likely. So he's not going to screw it up by like doing some bad team tactics by any stretch. He is, you know, the rest of us are playing checkers. He's playing chess. At least I'm playing checkers. These guys may be playing checkers. I'm playing tiddlywinks. He's playing chess. He's playing 3D chess. Anyway, so here's another thing for us to consider that I was thinking about. I don't think it was so great for me and James to be in, like, next to each other, one after the other, taking turns on the front. Because, you know, like, he does a pull, then I do a pull, then they attack, and then we're both more tired than the people behind us. So, on the other hand, you know, arguably it worked out fine. And arguably, you know, he would, well, it's not something to argue even, he would come around and kind of shorten the amount of time that I'd be on the front. So I went right through the hole there. So we're getting reasonably close to the end here. It's not all that far away. Well, it's kind of far away. There's a lot of suffering to be done here. And I kind of went through that turn pretty slow. I'm not good at turning my bike. This has been an issue, that I'm not good at turning my bike. I don't like to go fast through turns. I'm a middle-aged man that just does this for fun, and so if I can hedge my bets a little bit by never sliding out through a turn, that's what I like to do. So if you're behind me and you're expecting someone to be glued onto the wheel super fast through a turn, I'm not the guy you want to be behind. Anyway, so there's going to be another wild card that comes into this. Suddenly someone appears with us, but I'm not going to tell you what that is exactly. So there's Joe spraying himself with a little bit of water, getting some on the lens here. Some of it going on to me. Didn't mind. Kind of liked it, actually. Needed to cool down. This is Texas. It's August. It wasn't a super hot day. I don't know exactly what the temperature is. I could obviously look it up on Strava, but I'm talking right now looking at the video. I think it was probably, at this point, maybe mid to high 80s. But who knows, maybe a little bit. Yeah, I think that's probably right. Mid to high 80s. So I talked about the finish last video. So to give you some background, I've done this ride many times, but hadn't done this ride for a long time through COVID and everything else. Mainly because I'm lazy and I've not been in good shape and it's far away and I have to plan, I have to get up earlier, I have to drive. I don't have to drive, but it's kind of far for me to ride my bike to the ride. It's over 15 miles and not in the greatest roads as far as traffic to get to the ride. So I typically drive to the ride when I do it. The first time I did this ride was earlier in the racing season. Now I haven't raced this season, so it wasn't a racing season for me per se, but near the beginning of the race season, I did this ride and I got dropped on the very first climb, and like all my teammates finished ahead of me. I couldn't stay with any of my teammates. That was a little bit disheartening. Kind of saps your confidence a little bit. It's like back to the drawing board. I suck. There were some extenuating factors that caused for me to drop, like momentarily dropping my chain, but what's dropping your chain for 1 second versus everything else that happened and causing you to be dropped, namely being fat and having no fitness. So the second time I did this ride was much more recently, and I was in the second group on the road, so I wasn't in the main group, the peloton, but certainly wasn't in the break. James was in that break, and then I did the ride again last week, and due to kind of like made the break because of I was on the secondary break, of which there were a lot of people dropped that didn't make that, and we were able to bridge up because of one of the Cadence riders deciding to stitch it together. So kind of a progression, and I managed to finish third in that particular ride, and was helped out by my teammate, the same one who's in the break this time with me, who did a lot of work, and he let it out and set it up. So he sacrificed himself. I wish I could have done a little bit better, but so he's been really on form. Of all the guys on our team, I would argue that James has been the MVP of our team this year. We haven't had maybe the greatest race participation compared to previous years this year, but James has raced and he's done very well, and I'd make the argument he's the MVP. So he's definitely the guy that we wanted to be in this break, and our hope for a best place finish in general on this ride every week that it happens that he does it. So there's not a lot of super big elevation for climbing here. Even these small climbs do hurt us, and the break formed on what people who live elsewhere would say is a very short climb. But power is power. Can you put out that power that's required, watts per kilogram, even if it's only for 60 seconds? There can be a differential there. So I was really suffering when some of these harder pulls were going. I haven't been paying too close attention to the actual power here or what's been going on, but this is hurting me. This is not tremendous power, but I'm 51 miles into this, and I've had to do work over time. I'm not in the greatest shape in the world, and so these sorts of efforts, doing 500 watts, just hit 500 watts there in the draft, they're hurting. They're causing pain. And what I really don't want to have happen is to, of course, get dropped from the breakaway. I'm not that far from the finish. Can I hold on is the question. So that hurt. So he's not technically involved in the finishing places because he hasn't done the route with us. He skipped some part. And so, but he's kind of changing the dynamics a little bit by doing this hard pull. Now, how would things have changed if he wasn't there, if he didn't do that pull? I don't know. Might have been better, might have been worse. I don't know. Here's Chad on the front, telling us, of course, that he doesn't have fitness and blah, 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 but this hurt too. This hurt real bad. So Chad's, I haven't ridden my bike in 2 weeks, is superior to, my my efforts recently, I think. So I think Chad wanted to see if he'd get a little separation there. I don't know. I didn't look back to see if we got separation. I think we did have a little bit, but the guys behind us are strong, and I'm not gonna catch him out. There goes Joe right there. And so, he's got a teammate behind, and Chris there. This is kind of like Chris, like my tiddlywinks tactics. I'm like, oh, Joe's up the road, and if I'm Chris, well, you can argue that's exactly what I was going to say. Chris could just let him go, and I think he did right there. He was like, okay, just sort of, kind of looked like he was going to close the gap to his teammate, and then kind of just, after the turn, let up a little bit, and then my teammate, James, well aware of not allowing a gap to open, covers that. Now, what I was going to say is, I could do that for James as well, potentially, where, he's kind of going a little bit faster and I'm on the front and I could let a gap open. That might be okay, but in my mind, I had an opportunity like that earlier. But I decided, no, that's not a good idea, because what will happen is I'll be the one that gets dropped. They'll be able to cover the gap. I might not be able to, and they're all fine, and I'm dropped. So knowing that there's a fitness difference, it's in my best interest, if I want to stay on, to not let gaps open in general. Unless there's obviously if there's a major attack by my teammate, I'm gonna not follow that. But if it's just barely rolling off the front, 10 yards, 20 yards, that's not something I'm necessarily gonna let roll off, unless I'm confident that if there's an attack, I can cover it. So let's see. Oh, here's our wild card, John in the red. So another teammate. John is the one that helped me get in the break. You might recall that he was bridging up, and then Chad attacked, and I followed Chad, and John got dropped. Well, John took a shortcut. Mysteriously, he ended up at this junction at the exact moment we arrived, and he's kind of like Matt here. He's a wild card in our group that's not technically in the placings, but he's part of the dynamics of this group. So I think, I talked to John afterwards. He was saying he wanted to just keep the speed up so as to discourage attacks. If you look on the left, my MPA 1160, that tells me I'm fatigued, and I definitely felt fatigued through here. I was thinking, John, no, please don't do this. I'm barely holding on. I'm so fatigued. I'm just hoping that the pace will slow down in preparation for the sprint final, which is pretty close. And, there's a lot of ways people could do this. People can, we could be tactical, where everyone's kind of going slow, no one wants to do work, no one's doing a lead out. That's what happened last week. That didn't happen this time. It was fast, pretty fast the whole way through here. We were tooling around at 100 watts in this part before, and I'm over 400 watts right now. This is super pain. 500 watts. Part of me is really not wanting. It's just my body is telling me to just quit. Don't do this. But I'm so close to the end. It's my job. Theoretically, it's my job. Your teammates are going to be super pissed. Theoretically, no one's going to be pissed about this. It's just a group ride, or a race ride, so to speak. But you've gotten this far. Don't let your brain let you down. You got to let your will carry you, if at all possible. That's important. So let's talk about the dynamics of the finish here. You have this, so we're going a little bit uphill here. Then you have this downhill, and then another slight. I don't know if it's maybe more than slight. I guess the sprint finish is kind of like a 3% grade. Maybe that's not exactly right, but something like that. Maybe a little bit higher. So you can argue it does a little bit favor people that are a little bit lighter, but it's not that long. It's I'm sure that at the professional level it would just be like the real power guys. It would be just sprinters, but James is a little bit more. Yeah, he's a lot lighter than me. So, and he has a lot of power. So anything that's more uphill will favor James more than it favors me as far as our strengths. So you see Matt there going to the front again, wild card. Now this is, see what we have here? We have Chris saying, hey, you know, I'm gonna go in front of you because I'm going to lead you out. Taps his rear end, sort of, you know, follow me. Be attentive because here comes the lead out. You're going to be on my wheel. So being on Joe's wheel, this is the ideal place. But I'm feeling like crap. And I'm not sure that I can hold Joe's wheel. Last week, I was in a sprint with Joe and Randy, and I was actually on Randy's wheel, who was on Joe's wheel, and I lost Randy's wheel, and I didn't pass Joe. I got gapped. So I'm thinking what would be good would be for my teammate to be on Joe's wheel, and we'll see this in just a second. So John going to the front again, my teammate, little let up in the pace after Matt takes that really hard pull, and I let a gap open there, and I'm yelling at James like, get on Joe's wheel there, and he does. So that's the ideal position, I think, to be in the sprint here. So as you know, like, there's only really 5 of us competing for this sprint. We have the 2 Matrix guys there in blue. My friend, our teammate John, up in the front. He's not involved in this in terms of placings. We have my teammate James in the white, not the white and blue, but right here in the white, red, and yellow, and myself, and then Chad on the Cadence team. So we're the 5 people that are technically the people who can place in this finish. You see a head pop back, looking backwards, seeing what it looks like behind. So here's the downhill I was talking about. Again, I don't have the timing of this exactly right. You can see that we go down a little bit of sketchy road here, and hitting almost 40 miles an hour here, and then we are going to be going up, and the finish is like the second yellow sign up here. So I'm right on James' wheel. James let a little bit of a gap open up, and he's not on Joe's wheel. He should be on Joe's wheel. That's the ideal place. So we have an interloper between, but let's see if we can make this work. So there goes Matt. And so we see Chris on the right, Joe on the right, my teammate going ahead, me just like dying here, and here's the second sign with the 10 miles an hour. We managed to pull off the 1-2, James and I, the underdog team, the old guys, with Joe finishing 3rd behind us. So, good result. Happy about that. Kind of fun. I was so tired, I wanted to just lay down in the grass there, but last time I got in any grass here, I got about 40 chigger bites, so I did not lay down in the grass. Stay away from the grass here. Stay away from the grass up here in McKinney. Anyway, good ride. Hope you enjoyed that, and until next time. If you like subtitles better, just let me know in the comments, or if you like voiceovers better. You know, sometimes it's actually easier for me to do the voiceovers, even though I'm not particularly articulate. Don't know what I'm saying. But anyway, take care. Have fun out there on the road. Bye-bye.
No, I didn't want you to go to the front. I wanted them to sit.
Earlier, Chad just had to park twice, and I was.
Right. I sat on the whole time.
I didn't have near as many bullets. Taking a couple weeks off, man, like one hard effort, I'm like, yeah. I probably put in a 30-second. My heart lunch. I had to look back. I thought my heart rate was just spiked like the whole ride. I've been on antibiotics too. For like 10 days. Yeah, that takes something.
Yeah. I want to.
just for the record, I went long. I went more miles and then came back. So. Yeah.
What are you saying already? You're making an argument for coffee eligibility.
That was a beautiful course.
Tell me where you cut across.
At the ranch at. No, before the ranch at.